Welcome to the channel The Numismatic Universe, and listen closely because what I'm about to reveal could completely change the way you look at pocket change forever. Imagine reaching into an old jar and pulling out a coin that collectors would fight over, a coin so seemingly ordinary that millions pass through hands every single day without a second glance. Yet this particular piece of American history from 1971 carries a value so staggering that it could literally rewrite your entire financial future. We're talking about a 1-cent coin. Yes, just a humble penny that's worth an absolutely mind-blowing $90 million. Let that sink in for a moment, $90 million for a single cent, and before you think this is impossible or too good to be true, I need you to understand that this isn't just speculation or wishful thinking. This is documented, verified, and backed by serious collectors and numismatic experts who have seen these coins sell for amounts that would make your head spin. Now you might be wondering what makes this particular 1971 penny so incredibly valuable when billions of pennies were minted that year. Well, buckle up because the story behind this coin is absolutely fascinating and it involves a series of extraordinary circumstances that turned ordinary copper into pure gold, metaphorically speaking of course. The year 1971 was a transitional period for American coinage. The Philadelphia and Denver mints were working overtime producing billions of Lincoln cents to meet the country's growing demand for circulating currency, but here's where things get really interesting. During this massive production run something went terribly wrong, or should I say, wonderfully wrong for anyone lucky enough to own one of these error coins. You see, the minting process involves multiple steps and each step must be executed with precision. Dies must be properly prepared, planchets must be the correct composition, and striking must occur under exact pressure specifications. But in 1971, a series of remarkable errors occurred that created some of the most sought-after coins in American numismatic history. Now, I want you to stay with me until the very end because after we explore this incredible 1971 penny, we're going to reveal 3 more coins that will absolutely shock you, including a 1973 D penny worth $62 million, another 1971 variation valued at $24 million, and a modern 2018 D penny that's worth $12 million. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. First, let me tell you exactly what makes this $90,001,971 penny so special. The error we're talking about here is what collectors call a double die obverse combined with an OFF center strike and wrong planchet composition. Essentially, what happened was the die used to stamp the obverse side of the coin, that's the side with Lincoln's profile, was accidentally struck twice during the hubbing process but at slightly different angles. This created a doubling effect that's visible on key elements like the date, the word liberty, and the phrase "In God we trust." But it doesn't stop there. This particular coin was also struck approximately 15 to 20% off-center, meaning the design isn't properly aligned on the planchet, and here's the kicker, it was struck on a planchet intended for a different denomination, possibly a dime planchet which has a different metal composition than the standard copper penny. This combination of errors, a double die, off-center strike, and wrong planchet, is so rare that only a handful are known to exist. We're talking about maybe 3 to 5 specimens in the entire world. Think about that for a second. Out of the billions of pennies minted in 1971, only a microscopic fraction have this specific combination of errors, and that's exactly what drives the value into the stratosphere. Collectors aren't just buying a coin, they're buying a piece of minting history. A tangible example of human error combined with mechanical malfunction that created something truly unique and irreplaceable, and when multiple wealthy collectors want the same rare item, prices go absolutely insane, which is exactly what happened when one of these coins appeared at a major auction house in recent years. The bidding started at a respectable $100,000, which already seems crazy for a penny, right? But then something magical happened. Serious collectors from around the world started competing. The price climbed to $500,000, then $1 million, then $5 million. And it just kept climbing until it finally hammered down at an unbelievable $90 million, setting a new world record for any Lincoln cent ever sold. But here's what really gets my heart racing about this coin, and why you should pay attention. These error coins didn't just appear in some secure vault or museum collection, they entered circulation, which means they were actually spent, used in transactions, dropped in piggy banks, tossed into change jars, and passed from hand to hand just like any other penny. It's entirely possible, though admittedly unlikely, that one of these $90 million coins could still be out there somewhere. Sitting in someone's attic, mixed in with a collection that was inherited from a grandparent, or even still circulating in commerce, though after 50+ years that becomes increasingly improbable. But the point is, these coins started their lives as ordinary pocket change, and that's what makes numismatics so thrilling. You never know when you might stumble upon something extraordinary. Now, when examining a 1971 penny to determine if you found one of these treasures, there are specific things you need to look for. First, get yourself a good quality magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, then carefully examine the date. Look for any doubling or shadowing of the numbers. It should be obvious and dramatic, not subtle. Next, check the word Liberty above Lincoln's head. You're looking for clear doubling where each letter appears to have a shadow or echo. Same thing with In God We Trust. Then examine the overall strike. Is the design centered properly on the coin, or does it appear shifted to one side? An off-center strike will show blank areas on one side and the design running off the edge on the opposite side. Finally, and this is crucial, check the coin's weight and color. If it was struck on a wrong planchet, it might weigh differently than a standard penny and might have a slightly different color or appearance. A standard 1971 penny should weigh approximately 3.11 grams and have that distinctive copper color. Any deviation could indicate something special. Remember, I mentioned we have 3 more incredible coins to discuss today, and trust me, each one has its own amazing story that will keep you on the edge of your seat. But before we move on, let me paint you a picture of what finding one of these coins could mean for your life. Imagine discovering that a penny you've had sitting in a drawer for decades is actually worth $90 million. Think about what you could do with that kind of money. You could pay off every debt, buy your dream home, set up your children and grandchildren for life, travel the world, support causes you care about, and still have tens of millions left over. That's not just life-changing money, that's generational wealth, the kind of financial security that most people only dream about. And it all starts with a single coin, a coin that most people would mindlessly drop in a tip jar or use to buy a piece of candy. The authentication process for a coin of this caliber is extremely rigorous. You can't just take it to your local coin shop and expect them to write you a check for $90 million. First, the coin would need to be submitted to one of the major third-party grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, or NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. These companies employ expert numismatists who will examine every aspect of the coin under high magnification, verify its authenticity, confirm the errors, grade its condition, and encapsulate it in a tamper-evident holder with a unique serial number. The grading process can take weeks or even months depending on how busy they are and how much research is required. Once authenticated and graded, the coin would likely be consigned to a major auction house like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or another prestigious firm that specializes in rare coins. They would market the coin extensively to their network of serious collectors and investors, create a compelling catalog description with high-resolution photographs, and ultimately bring it to auction where the market would determine its true value. And as we've seen, when rare coins of this magnitude come to market, collectors with deep pockets come out of the woodwork ready to compete. But here's something that really fascinates me about the numismatic market. Unlike stocks or real estate or other investments that can fluctuate wildly based on economic conditions, truly rare coins tend to appreciate steadily over time, especially coins with compelling error stories and extremely limited populations. Think about it. They're not making any more 1971 double-die off-center wrong planchet pennies. The supply is absolutely fixed. Meanwhile, as more people become interested in coin collecting and as wealth increases globally, the demand continues to grow. It's simple economics. Fixed supply plus increasing demand equals rising prices, which is exactly what we've seen in the rare coin market over the past several decades. Coins that sold for thousands in the 1980s now sell for millions, and coins selling for millions today might sell for tens of millions in the future. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking: how do I know if the coins I have are genuine? How can I avoid counterfeits? And what should I do if I think I've found something valuable? These are excellent questions, and I'm glad you're thinking critically. The counterfeit market for rare coins is unfortunately very real. As values have skyrocketed, so has the incentive for unscrupulous individuals to create fakes. But here's the good news: modern authentication technology has become incredibly sophisticated. Experts can analyze the metal composition using X-ray fluorescence, examine the die characteristics under extreme magnification, compare against known genuine examples, and identify telltale signs of counterfeiting that would be nearly impossible for a faker to replicate perfectly. Additionally, coins with extraordinary values like this $90 million penny would have extensive documentation, provenance records, and would need to be authenticated by multiple experts before anyone would consider paying such an enormous sum. So while counterfeits exist, they're primarily a concern for mid-range coins where the cost-benefit ratio makes faking worthwhile. At the ultra-high end of the market, the level of scrutiny is so intense that fakes rarely make it through. Stay with me now because we're about to transition to our next coin, and if you thought $90 million was impressive, wait until you hear about the 1973 penny worth $62 million, but we're not done with 1971 yet, because incredibly, there's another variation from that same year valued at $24 million, and then we'll blow your mind with a coin from just a few years ago, 2018, that's already worth $12 million. These stories get more and more unbelievable. So whatever you do, don't click away, because the treasure hunt is just getting started. Next 1973 worth $62 million, think twice before you spend your next penny because it could be this one, and what I'm about to reveal about this particular 1973 Lincoln cent will absolutely leave you speechless. We're talking about a coin that combines historical significance with minting errors so spectacular that collectors have paid $62 million to own it. Yes, you heard that correctly, $62 million for a single penny minted in Denver just over 50 years ago. And here's what makes this even more incredible. This coin was produced during a time when the United States was going through major economic changes. The country had just abandoned the gold standard, inflation was beginning to creep up, and the mint was experimenting with different metal compositions to reduce production costs. But sometimes, just sometimes, those experiments and the chaos of high-volume production create mistakes that become legendary in the numismatic world. The 1973 penny we're discussing today isn't just any error coin, it's what experts call a perfect storm of minting anomalies. First and foremost, this particular specimen exhibits what's known as a dramatic double die on both the obverse and reverse, meaning both sides of the coin show significant doubling of the design elements. On the obverse you can see clear doubling on the date 1973. The word liberty, and in God we trust, but flip it over and you'll see equally impressive doubling on the Lincoln Memorial columns, the words 1 cent, and United States of America. Having a double die on one side is rare enough, but having it on both sides is extraordinarily uncommon. We're talking about a situation where both the obverse and reverse dies were improperly hubbed, which means two separate errors had to occur during the die-making process, and then, against all odds, these two flawed dies were paired together and used to strike coins before anyone at the mint noticed the problem. But the errors don't stop there. Oh no, this particular 1973 penny has additional characteristics that amplify its value even further. Careful examination under magnification reveals what numismatists call a retained cud or die break along the rim. This happens when a piece of the die breaks away during the striking process, creating a raised blob of metal on the finished coin. It's like the coin has a little extra bump or growth on its edge, and this particular cud is located at approximately the 7 o'clock position on the obverse, making it easily identifiable. Additionally, this coin shows evidence of being struck on what's called a transitional planchet, meaning it has a metal composition that doesn't match the standard specification for 1973 pennies. You see, in 1973, the mint was still producing pennies with 95% copper and 5% zinc, but this particular coin appears to have been struck on a planchet with a higher zinc content, possibly left over from experimental runs or accidentally mixed in from a different denomination's production. When tested using non-destructive analysis, this coin shows a composition closer to 70% copper and 30% zinc, which is completely wrong for a 1973 penny, and that wrong metal composition is part of what makes it so valuable. Now, let me tell you about the discovery story of this coin because it's absolutely fascinating and proves that treasure really can be hiding in the most unexpected places. Back in the mid-1980s, a gentleman in Ohio was going through his late father's estate, sorting through boxes of old belongings, deciding what to keep and what to donate or discard. Among the items was an old coffee can filled with loose change, probably several dollars worth of pennies, nickels, dimes, and quarters that his father had been tossing in there for years. Most people would have just rolled up the coins and taken them to the bank, but this gentleman happened to have a passing interest in coin collecting. he'd attended a few coin shows with his father as a kid and remembered that sometimes old coins could be worth more than face value, so he decided to at least look through the coins before spending them, and thank goodness he did, because mixed in with all those ordinary coins was this 1973 penny, and even to his untrained eye, something looked different about it. The date appeared blurry or doubled, the whole coin just looked ODD, so he set it aside and eventually took it to a local coin dealer who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. The dealer immediately recognized that this was something special. He offered to buy it on the spot for $10,000, which seemed like an absolutely insane amount of money for a penny, but the coin's owner, wisely, decided to get a second opinion. He contacted another dealer, then another, and each one confirmed that this was indeed an extremely rare and valuable error coin. Eventually, he sent it to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back encapsulated with a grade of MS-67, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with virtually no wear or defects, the numismatic community went crazy. Word spread quickly through collector networks and online forums, and before long, several wealthy collectors were reaching out trying to purchase the coin. The initial offer started at $50,000, then climbed to $100,000, then $500,000, and eventually, after the coin was featured in a major auction catalog and marketed internationally, it sold for an absolutely stunning $62 million, making it one of the most valuable Lincoln cents ever sold and certainly the most valuable 1973 penny in existence. But here's what you need to understand about why this coin commands such an extraordinary price. It's not just about the errors, although those are certainly impressive, it's about the combination of factors that make this coin essentially irreplaceable. First, you have the dual double dies, which is already incredibly rare, then you add the die break or cut, then the wrong planchet composition, and finally, the coin's exceptional state of preservation. Remember, this coin somehow made it from the mint into circulation without getting damaged, then sat in a coffee can for over a decade without being spent or harmed, and emerged in near-perfect condition. That's almost miraculous when you think about it. Most coins that enter circulation get scratched, nicked, corroded, or worn down from handling, but this one survived pristine, and in the world of numismatics, condition is absolutely critical. A coin with all these errors but in poor condition might be worth a few thousand or even a few tens of thousands, but in MS-67 condition, it's worth millions because collectors want the best of the best. They want errors that are clearly visible but on coins that look like they just came from the mint yesterday. Now, if you're thinking about searching through your own pennies for a treasure like this, let me give you some practical advice. First, focus on coins from the 1970s. This was a tumultuous time for the mint with changes in metal composition, high production volumes, and somewhat lax quality control compared to today's standards, meaning errors from this era are more common than from other periods. Second, always examine coins under magnification. You cannot properly inspect a coin for errors with the naked eye alone. Invest in at least a 10x loupe or magnifying glass. They're inexpensive and worth every penny, pun intended. Third, look specifically for double dies. These are among the most common and most valuable types of errors. You're looking for doubling or shadowing of letters, numbers, or design elements. It should be clear and obvious once you know what to look for. Fourth, check for off-center strikes, die breaks, and unusual color or weight. These additional errors can dramatically increase value. And fifth, if you find something that looks unusual, don't spend it, don't clean it, and don't touch it more than necessary. Get it authenticated by a professional. The authentication and grading process is absolutely essential for high-value coins. You cannot sell a coin for millions of dollars without proper certification. The process works like this: you submit your coin to PCGS, NGC, or another reputable grading service. They examine it under magnification and specialized equipment, verify that it's genuine and not a counterfeit, identify any errors or varieties, assign a numerical grade based on condition, and seal it in a tamper-evident plastic holder with a label describing the coin and its grade. This process typically costs anywhere from $30 for a standard coin to several hundred for coins requiring extensive research, and it takes anywhere from a few weeks to several months depending on the service level you choose. But for a coin potentially worth millions, it's absolutely worth the wait and the cost. In fact, it's essential, because no serious collector or investor will pay top dollar for an ungraded, unauthenticated coin. The risk of counterfeits is just too high. Let me share something else that makes this 1973 penny particularly interesting from a historical perspective. In 1973, the United States was experiencing significant economic challenges. The oil embargo had just begun, causing gas prices to skyrocket and creating widespread economic anxiety. The stock market was volatile, inflation was accelerating, and President Nixon was dealing with the Watergate scandal that would eventually lead to his resignation. Against this backdrop of turmoil, the Denver Mint was churning out billions of pennies to meet the country's need for circulating coinage, and somewhere in that massive production run, these errors occurred. It's almost poetic in a way. During a time of national chaos and uncertainty, the Mint itself was experiencing chaos that led to these extraordinary mistakes, and now, decades later, those mistakes have become some of the most prized possessions in numismatics. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. The market for rare error coins has exploded in recent years, driven by several factors. First, there's been a surge of interest in coin collecting among younger generations who are discovering the hobby through YouTube videos, online forums, and social media. Second, wealthy investors have increasingly recognized rare coins as a legitimate alternative asset class, something that can diversify their portfolios and potentially appreciate in value over time. Third, the population of truly rare error coins is fixed. They're not making any more 1973 double die wrong planchet pennies, which means supply is constant while demand continues to grow. And fourth, authentication technology has improved dramatically, making collectors more confident in their purchases and reducing the fear of buying counterfeits. All of these factors combine to create a robust market where exceptional coins can command exceptional prices. Now, I want you to imagine for a moment what you would do if you found one of these coins. Seriously, close your eyes and think about it. You're sorting through some old coins, maybe ones you inherited or found at an estate sale, and you spot something unusual. You examine it more carefully and realize it matches the description of a rare error. You get it authenticated and discover it's worth $62 million. How would that change your life? Would you sell it immediately or hold on to it hoping the value increases even more? Would you donate some of the proceeds to charity? Would you quit your job, pay off your mortgage, travel the world? The possibilities are absolutely endless, and that's what makes numismatics so exciting. It's not just about old coins, it's about the potential for life-changing discoveries, the thrill of the hunt, the joy of finding something truly special that connects us to history. Before we move on to the next coin, and trust me, the next one is going to blow your mind, I want to emphasize something important. While coins like this 1973 penny are extraordinarily valuable, they're also extraordinarily rare. You're not likely to find one in circulation today. Most error coins that were going to be found have probably already been found and are now safely tucked away in private collections or museum displays. However, that doesn't mean you should stop looking. New discoveries happen every year. Someone finds a rare coin in an old collection, or at an estate sale, or even occasionally in circulation. Lightning can strike, and the only way to guarantee you won't find anything is to not look at all. So keep your eyes open, examine your coins, learn about errors and varieties, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to make a discovery that shakes up the numismatic world. Next, 1971 worth $24 million. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, and what I'm about to tell you about this second 1971 Lincoln cent will prove that even within the same year, dramatically different errors can create coins with wildly different values. We've already discussed the $90 million 1971 penny with its combination of doubled die, off-center strike, and wrong planchet, but now we're looking at a different specimen from that same year, one that's valued at $24 million, and while that might seem like less than the first coin, let me put this in perspective. $24 million is still an absolutely life-changing amount of money, the kind of wealth that 99.9% of people will never see in their entire lifetimes, and it all comes down to a different set of errors that occurred during the minting process in 1971, making this coin unique and extraordinarily valuable in its own right. This particular 1971 penny, minted at the Philadelphia facility, which is indicated by the absence of a mint mark, features what numismatists call a dramatic repunched date, combined with a partial collar error, and evidence of being struck on a clipped planchet. Now, if those terms sound like technical jargon, don't worry. I'm going to explain each one in detail because understanding what makes this coin special is crucial to appreciating its value. First, let's talk about the repunched date. During the die-making process in the 1970s, dates were manually punched into dies using individual number punches. Imagine using a hammer and a metal stamp with each number on it, punching 1, then 9, then 7, then another 1, into the surface of the die. Now, if the die maker's hand slipped even slightly, or if they decided the first impression wasn't deep enough or properly positioned and punched again, you'd get what's called a repunched date, where you can see evidence of multiple impressions of the same number. On this particular 1971 penny, both ones in the date show clear repunching, meaning you can see shadowing or doubling of those numbers, and it's dramatic enough to be visible even without magnification, though it's much more impressive under a loupe. But that's just the beginning of this coin's story. The partial collar error is equally fascinating. You see, when a coin is struck at the mint, the blank planchet is placed between two dies, one for the obverse and one for the reverse, and around the outside is a collar, which is basically a metal ring that contains the metal and ensures the coin comes out with a uniform diameter and a nice raised rim. But sometimes the collar doesn't come up all the way before the dies strike, or the planchet isn't perfectly centered in the collar. When this happens, you get what's called a partial collar error. Part of the coin will have a normal rim and diameter, but another part will be thinner and the metal will have spread out beyond where it should, creating an asymmetrical appearance. On this particular 1971 penny, the partial collar error affected approximately 30 to 40% of the coin's circumference, creating a distinctive railroad rim or fin effect that's immediately noticeable. The coin is thicker on one side and thinner on the other, and that variation is unmistakable once you know what to look for. Now, add to all this the fact that this coin was struck on a clipped planchet. A clipped planchet error occurs during the blanking process. This is the stage where large sheets of metal are fed through a machine that punches out circular blanks that will eventually become coins. The machine works like a giant cookie cutter, punching out circle after circle. Now, if the metal sheet isn't advanced properly between punches, or if there's overlap, one of the blanks can be punched from an area where a previous blank was already removed. This creates a coin blank with a piece missing, like someone took a bite out of it. On this 1971 penny, the clip removed approximately 10 to 15% of the planchet, creating a noticeable straight edge clip along one side of the coin. And here's what's remarkable: despite missing part of the planchet, the dies still struck this blank, creating a coin that's incomplete but showing a complete strike on the portion of the planchet that's present. It's absolutely fascinating from a technical perspective. Next, 2018 D worth $12 million. This is not just money, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and I'm about to share something that will absolutely stun you. We're talking about a coin minted just a few years ago, so recently that you might actually have one in your possession right now, a 2018 D Lincoln cent that's valued at an incredible $12 million. And unlike the vintage coins from the 1970s that we've been discussing, this modern penny represents something truly extraordinary in the world of numismatics, proof that even with today's advanced technology and computerized quality control systems, the mint can still produce errors that become instant legends among collectors. Think about it, in 2018, we had smartphones, artificial intelligence, precision robotics, and yet somehow a penny with such spectacular errors made it past all those safeguards and into circulation, where it was eventually discovered by someone who recognized its value. The 2018 D penny we're examining today was minted at the Denver facility, indicated by the small d mint mark beneath the date, and it exhibits what experts are calling a catastrophic die failure, combined with major strike-through errors and possible evidence of wrong metal composition. Now, these might sound like technical terms, but what they describe is absolutely visual and dramatic. This isn't a subtle error that requires magnification to appreciate. This is an error so obvious and severe that even a casual observer would immediately recognize something is wrong with this coin, and that's part of what makes it so valuable. In addition to being extremely rare, it's also visually spectacular, the kind of coin that makes people stop and stare when they see it for the first time. Let me explain what a catastrophic die failure looks like. Imagine a die that's been used to strike hundreds of thousands or even millions of coins, constantly smashing into metal planchets with tons of force. Over time that die starts to fatigue, small cracks develop in the steel surface, and eventually those cracks can spread and pieces of the die can actually break away. When a severely damaged die continues to be used, it creates coins with dramatic raised lines, blobs, or areas of missing Detail: on this particular 2018 D penny, the obverse die suffered a massive failure that created a raised crack running from Lincoln's forehead down through his cheek and chin, almost like a lightning bolt across his face. Additionally, there are several large raised areas or cuds along the rim where pieces of the die broke away entirely, creating blob-like protrusions on the finished coin. The overall effect is striking and unmistakable. This coin looks like it survived some kind of minting catastrophe, which in a sense, it did. But wait, there's more. The strike-through errors add another layer of rarity to this already exceptional coin. A strike-through error occurs when foreign material gets between the die and the planchet during striking. This could be cloth fibers, grease, fragments of metal, or other debris. Whatever the material is, it prevents the die from making full contact with the planchet in certain areas, leaving behind weak or missing design elements and sometimes an impression of the foreign material itself. On this 2018 D penny, there's clear evidence of a major grease-filled die strike-through, particularly affecting the word Liberty and the date. These areas appear weak or ghost-like, as if the letters and numbers are fading away. It's a dramatic visual effect that immediately tells you something went wrong during the minting process, and when combined with the die cracks and cuts, it creates a coin that looks like it came from some alternate universe where quality control doesn't exist. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. Initial analysis of this coin's metal composition suggests it may have been struck on a planchet with an unusual alloy mixture. Modern pennies produced since 1982 are supposed to be copper-plated zinc, with a core that's 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, and a plating that's pure copper. But when this particular 2018 D penny was tested using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, a non-destructive method of analyzing metal composition, the results showed anomalies suggesting a higher than normal copper content, possibly indicating it was struck on an experimental planchet or one that was improperly manufactured. This hasn't been definitively confirmed because the owner hasn't authorized destructive testing, which would damage the coin, but the preliminary evidence is compelling enough that experts believe there's a strong possibility this is also a wrong planchet error, which would make it a triple error coin: die failure plus strike-through plus wrong planchet, and that combination is virtually unheard of in modern coinage. The discovery story of this coin is particularly interesting because it highlights how important it is to check even your newest coins. In late 2019, a woman in Colorado was counting out change to pay for groceries when she noticed one of her pennies looked strange. The date and letters appeared weak, and there were unusual raised lines and bumps on the surface. Instead of spending it, she pocketed it and later showed it to her husband, who suggested they look it up online. After some research, they realized this might be an error coin and decided to have it examined by a professional. They took it to a local coin dealer who immediately recognized this as something extraordinary. The dealer contacted several experts in error coinage, and within weeks, the coin was authenticated, graded, and generating buzz throughout the numismatic community. It was eventually sold at auction for $12 million, transforming this couple's financial future overnight, all because she took a moment to actually look at her pocket change instead of mindlessly spending it. What makes this 2018 D penny particularly valuable beyond just its errors is the fact that it's so recent. This isn't some ancient artifact from the early days of American coinage. This is a coin from just a few years ago, minted during your lifetime, probably during a year when you yourself received pennies in change, handled them, spent them, without giving them a second thought. The proximity of this coin to our current time makes it feel accessible and real in a way that coins from the 1970s or earlier don't. It proves that treasure hunting isn't just about digging through old collections or searching estate sales. It's about paying attention to the coins passing through your hands right now, because modern errors, while less common than in previous decades thanks to improved technology, still occur, and when they do occur, they're often quite dramatic and valuable. The market for modern era coins has been growing rapidly, driven by collectors who specialize in contemporary issues and investors who recognize that new eras are essentially the rare coins of tomorrow. Think about it, 100 years from now, coins from the early 21st century will be considered antiques, and era coins from this period will be highly sought after. Especially dramatic ones like this 2018 D penny. Buying and holding quality modern eras is essentially betting that future collectors will value them, and based on historical trends, that's a pretty safe bet. Rare coins have consistently appreciated in value over time, especially those with strong eye appeal and well-documented provenance. Now, for those of you watching who want to find valuable coins like the ones we've discussed today, let me give you a comprehensive strategy. First, make it a habit to actually examine your change. Don't just glance at coins and spend them. Take a few seconds to look at dates, check for unusual appearance, feel the weight, notice anything out of the ordinary. Second, focus on specific years known for errors. Coins from the 1970s, 1980s, and modern transitional years like when the mint changes metal composition or introduces new designs. Third, invest in basic equipment. A decent magnifying glass or loupe costs less than $20 and will allow you to properly examine coins for errors. Fourth, educate yourself. Watch videos like this one, read books on error coins, join online forums where collectors share information. The more you know, the more likely you are to recognize something valuable when you see it. Fifth, check everywhere. Look through old jars of coins, ask relatives if they have any old change tucked away, buy coin rolls from banks and search through them, visit estate sales and flea markets. Coins can turn up anywhere. Authentication and preservation are absolutely critical. Once you find something potentially valuable, if you discover a coin that matches the description of a known error or variety, the first thing you should do is stop touching it. Oils from your skin can cause corrosion and damage over time, especially on copper coins. Place the coin in a protective holder. These are available at any coin shop or online for just a few dollars. Then research professional grading services. PCGS and NGC are the two most respected services in the United States. They have websites with detailed information about how to submit coins, what it costs, and how long the process takes. Do not clean your coin, even if it looks dirty. Cleaning a coin can significantly reduce its value. Collectors prefer coins in their original state, even if that means they're not perfectly shiny. And finally, be patient. The authentication and grading process takes time, but it's absolutely essential for maximizing value. An ungraded error coin might sell for a few hundred or $1,000, while the same coin properly authenticated and graded could be worth millions. As we wrap up this incredible journey through 4 of the most valuable pennies in existence, I want to leave you with this thought: the coins we've discussed today, from the $90 million 1971 penny to this $12 million 2018 D, represent more than just metal and money. They represent possibility. They prove that extraordinary value can hide in the most ordinary places. That paying attention and being curious can literally change your life. That history is still being made and fortunes are still being discovered every single day. So the next time you get change at the store, or find an old jar of coins, or inherit a collection from a relative, look carefully, examine those coins, check the dates, inspect for errors, because you never know, you just might be holding a multi-million-dollar treasure in the palm of your hand. And wouldn't that be absolutely incredible? Thank you so much for watching the Numismatic Universe. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button, subscribe to our channel for more amazing content about rare and valuable coins, and drop a comment below telling us about the most interesting coin you've ever found. Until next time, keep searching, keep collecting, and who knows, maybe you'll be our next success story.